project. When the project first starts, the only dependency that we have is React, React DOM, and React scripts. If we ran this command and it runs successfully, we should see something called React-Redux in this file momentarily. Come on, baby. Sorry, I should have probably done this beforehand. And what do we have, guys? Where's that file, this line that we had? React Redux, okay? So that ran okay. So now we're gonna install Redux. We need to install 2 different libraries. Okay, that seems to have gone well. Let's go ahead and start our server and see what we have. So I expect to see the default boilerplate template. And we do in fact see that. Okay, let's go ahead and update this and just start working our magic. We're gonna call this H1 Redux tutorial. And everything seems to have not been broken. So I told you guys, I've advised you guys, I told you the problem it is that it normally is. The problem is that I have a whole bunch of different components that need to know the current user, okay? So let's go ahead and just create a component. I'm gonna call this one navbar, call this one navbar. And then it's gonna return a div, and we're gonna call this one class name navbar, okay? We save it, we're gonna pop down over here, we're gonna render it. Okay, nothing broke. Now we need to style it so that we can actually see something. So we're gonna give this navbar style on the right. You guys can see it. We're gonna call it, we're gonna say background color is blue and width is 100% view width. Why do we not see it, guys? Because of the height. The height is gonna be 10% view height. And there we go. We have our navbar. Okay, now let's imagine that we had another component that was responsible for a form. We'll call this authentication form. Okay, this is just a React component. It's in charge of authentication. Inside of here, we obviously need to return some JSX. So we're gonna give this one a class name just so we can see it and we can imagine this is a real component, okay? So we call this authentication form. Okay, now we're gonna save over here and we're gonna say that this is background color red, height is 50% view width height, and then we're gonna say width is 50% of the view width. Okay, so that looks good. The problem now is that we haven't actually rendered it. So let's render it inside the body of our app component. And do we have the form? Yes, we do. Okay, let's go ahead and just give our class some styling. So I want to have everything centered. I'm gonna go this. I'm gonna go away from the normal. I'm gonna actually do some styling here. So we're gonna give it some flex, justify content center, align item center. I expect it to sit in the center now. Oops. Flex direction, column. Why is this not in the middle? Align self, center. Okay, there we go. My bad. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna delete all this now. Guess I needed that. Change my mind. Change my mind. Okay, we do need this. We need, come on, baby. All right, there we go. Okay, so imagine now that this form is gonna collect some information. It's an authentication form. What's it gonna collect, guys? Yes. What else? Email. That's the most important one I want you guys to think about right now. So we're gonna have a little input form, okay? We're gonna call it an input form. We're gonna stick it right in there. Okay? Now let's go ahead and give it a header so that people know what the fuck they're supposed to put in here, okay? Because remember, your user is borderline retarded, okay? You need to help them understand what the hell they're doing. Huh? We want them to put in their email, okay? I'm putting in one for email, and the other one's gonna be profile picture. Okay? And then lastly, we're gonna have button. Okay? Button. Sign in, for example. Okay? So now I have a input where we type in our email, and then we type in our photo, and then we click sign in. What's gonna happen when we sign in, guys? Please think about any app you've ever used. This should be very obvious. I want someone to tell me what's gonna happen when I click this button. Redirect could be one of them. Should I still see this form when I click that button? Okay, that's one thing. We should hide the form. Secondly, what else is gonna happen in this nav bar? Exactly. So we should see some additional content show up in our nav bar to indicate that, hey, you're signed in. So how are we going to solve this problem? These two components, the nav bar and the authentication form, they are on the same level, okay? I cannot pass a prop from nav bar to authentication form because they're siblings. It's impossible right now, okay? We could do some state inside of our app, but I told you what the problem with that is, okay? Our app becomes much more bloated, and there's a whole bunch of different problems that will arise when we do that, okay? So I'm just gonna do simple, okay? Let's just make sure the authentication form can hide and show correctly depending on whether or not the user has clicked on this button, okay? So now we're gonna do const email and, oh my bad. Email and set email. Remember, this is a new thing in React 16.8. I even know what version it came out. God, I'm a loser. Okay, so it's use state, okay? So if you guys look at our your React right here, oops, I need to look at this different place. If we look at this on our dev tools and we look at components, you guys will now see what? Why don't we have anything here? We have hooks right here. This tool is not perfect. It should be breaking it out right here. When you guys use hooks, it doesn't actually tell you each key, each piece of state that you guys have. Okay, so this is not a perfect tool yet. So we want to be able to update our email. So we're just going to add an on change to this one. And whenever we change, we're just going to set email. And what's it going to be? e.target.value. Because whenever we change, it's an event, right? Whenever we're typing in here, it's going to be an event. So you guys will notice a second, if we console log state or the email, our email is going to change correctly. So let's go type, and we are in fact getting the correct email. Okay? So we want the same thing to happen for what? For our profile picture URL, okay? Set profile picture URL. Okay? All right, now say again. So we're gonna do just gonna copy this line, paste here, and we say set profile picture URL. And in order to be very, very explicit, I'm gonna just show the image here too, because I want to prove to you guys that this is working. So I'm gonna put an image here. I'm gonna say our alt is profile photo, profile image, and then our size is gonna be 100. Our height is gonna be 100. My bad. Our height is gonna be 100. Our width is gonna be 100. Our source is going to be what, guys? Profile pic URL. Okay? You got a problem, ladies and gentlemen? I didn't close it. That's the problem. Okay, so if things went well, I imagine if I type in a correct URL image right here, it should work correctly. That image should work correctly. So I'm going to look for kittens. I like kittens. You know what? I don't like kittens anymore. I like puppies. Change my mind. I like this one. Okay, I think that should be good. So if I paste this in here, it does in fact show us a puppy, okay? So now, if I click sign in, I want to see this form close and all this data show up inside the nav bar, okay guys? So we're going to introduce Redux. That's what we're going to do right now. Okay? Okay, so when I click the button, what's gonna happen? We need to pass our data to the Redux store, right? So in order to have the Redux store, do you remember which file I told you that we're allowed to touch now? Yes, we're allowed to touch this file now, okay? And we need to do two things in here. We need to import provider from Redux, and then we need to import create store from Redux. Okay, we need to define two new values. One's going to be a reducer, the other one's going to be a store. So we're going to say const reducer, and this reducer is always going to be a function. Okay, and the next thing is going to be a store, and the value of this is going to be a call to create store where we pass in the reducer. That's the minimum thing that we can do. But we need to do one more thing if we want to see it inside of our tooling. Okay, so I forgot the link, to be honest with you. And I need to move this up here. Okay, that looks good. Where's that link, guys? Where's it at? Where's it at? Right here. Okay, so we're gonna copy this thing right here, and we're just gonna put it as the second argument to our store. Oops. Okay, that looks good. Sometimes you guys are gonna see it like this, and that's because we can pass in multiple configurations to our store. Okay? There are additional configurations depending on other stuff. Okay? So now that's not good enough. We also need to do what? We also need to wrap this app component. Okay? So we're gonna wrap it with a provider. And this is just something magical that we have to memorize. Okay? And then we pass this provider a store property, and the value is the store thing that we got back from the call to create store. Because remember, create store is a function. Does everyone understand that? Create store is a function. Okay? So we call that function, that's going to return something, and that something is going to be inside of the store. Okay, so if we save it, and we go back to our browser, and we check. I actually want that image, hold on. Okay, there we go. If we look at our Redux, do we have everything set up correctly? Kinda, not exactly. So we didn't crash the application. That's a good thing, but we need some initial state. So at this point, know that this function is going to be called every single time we update our state. And when it's called, it's going to be passed an argument called state. Oops. And also, additionally, it's going to be passed a second argument called action. Okay? I'm going to prove to you that this is what happens. So I'm going to console log, reducer is fired. So we refresh, we look at our console, we see that our reducer was fired. It fires one time to initialize some state. Okay? Whatever is returned from this function right here will always be our state. So if I return something and I say class is L captain, and I say school is coder school, I save it and refresh, what do you guys expect to see over here in our state? The reducer will always return an object. This object will always be what is inside of our Redux store. There is no other thing. There's no other purpose for the reducer. Okay? I can stick whatever I want in here. Okay? We're just going to leave these two here just to fuck around. Okay? We're going to leave these two here. I don't know. We're not adding more right now. Okay? The common pattern that you guys will see is that we also say some initial state. We say const initial state. So what's our initial state going to be? I'm going to say current user. We're going to make it null. Okay? When the app first loads, the current user is null. Okay? Oops. So right here, this is called a default argument. That you guys see what I'm highlighting on line 18? If state is not passed, then it's going to be given a default argument of state. And why did this get overwritten, guys? Why does the state not have a current user of null? It's because this return is only ever going to return two keys. It's only ever able to return these two keys right here. It cannot return anything else. So Phil is correct, kind of. The problem is that we need to pay attention to the state. And it's just like when you guys map over something. If you map over an array and you don't look at the element, I'm going to yell at you, okay? With every single time you're mapping over something, you need to be looking at it, okay? So, you know, like const people is equal to, you know, my, Sean, Phil, okay? If you do people.map and you just ignore this element right here, I don't know why you're mapping over it. It really makes no sense to me. Okay, so just like Phil just said, we ignored our state right here. So how can I always make sure that I get everything that's off the state? I'm going to spread it. So we're going to do dot spread right here. Okay, we're going to spread the state. So now I anticipate we're going to have 3 keys. Right. So now we have 3 keys here. Okay. Okay. So what was the initial problem? The initial problem is I want the authentication form to say, hey, are you signed in? If so, I don't want to show you. I want to just show your profile photo URL. Okay, so how can we do this? The first thing we need to do is extract. Okay, so we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call this components. And then we're going to call this authentication form, I guess. .js. We're going to do, we're just going to copy this authentication form over. Paste. We're going to copy this thing over here from React because we need all that good stuff. Okay, what do we need to do now? Export default authentication form. Okay, then we'll jump back over to our app.js and we'll import it. Import authentication form from and I expect that this will work. And we do in fact see it working. Okay, so the objective, remember, our objective now is to type in some shit here. I type in some email, I give my photo URL, I click sign in. I want to see what change here. I want to see my current user change, right? Think about it. If I give them my email, give my profile photo URL, I click sign in, I should now see something inside of this state. We should see a current user, right? So how can we do that? So we need to be able to dispatch an action. We need to be able to update our state from a component, okay? From a component. So if we look inside of our authentication form, and we look at our pops, what are we gonna see? We have no pops sent into this component. Does that make sense? Think about it. Let's think about this, okay? How many props am I sending to authentication form on line 20? None. So when I look at the console log and I look at the props sent in, right here on line 4, I do expect to see none. That makes perfect sense because I know what props are. I know how we pass props to components, okay? So we need to be able to update our state, and we can do that using this magical function called dispatch. And the way we get access to dispatch is by calling connect, okay? Connect. And we need to import this from somewhere. I don't even remember where, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's this. Is it React Redux? I don't remember, to be honest with you. And then we just do that syntax right there. I think this will work. Okay, it did not work, so it was not correct. That did not work. Okay, let's Google it. I don't remember, to be honest with you. React Redux. It's some syntax. I never remember. That's why I want you guys to look at the documentation. Yes, Phil's right. It's a destructured import. This is what happens when I try to memorize shit. I fuck up, and I've been doing this long. You guys are gonna do the same thing. So just look at the documentation. So I save it. I jump back over here. How many props are now passed to our authentication form? 1. Well, I don't know what this is. This is some other magical shit. This is actually how we create. Actually, my bad. I didn't know what this is. This is called a higher order component. I remember I told you guys earlier this week there's some concepts that you guys didn't need to know. Well, just know that internally Redux is using this concept called higher order components. It's like a design pattern. You don't need to worry about it right now. But internally it does it. And whenever we call the connect, it gives us this property called dispatch for free. And this is a data type function. We can call it. Okay, so we now have access to this. Okay, so now what's going to happen? when we update our email, what do we, like when we're typing, what do we want to have happen? We want to dispatch an action which updates this email. So we can do pops.dispatch, what? Remember, when we dispatch an action, it's always ever only going to take an object. This object will have two keys. One is type, the other one is payload. And some people will use other ones. The truth is, some people will call it other keys, but typically I've seen it called payload. So we're gonna call the type update email, okay? And the payload is going to be e.target.value, okay? So now, I suspect this should work. Or is this working? That was weird. So now we can see that every single time our reducer is fired. Remember how I demonstrated a second ago that our reducer is going to fire? You guys remember that? So every single time I type, line 19 is firing, okay? But how is it changing? Is it changing our email when we do this? Are we changing our email? Look at lines 20 through 24. Is it changing the email? Can we make this change in email?
Yes.
Yes, we can. I could just do this if I wanted, right? Email is Kung gave me an answer at coderschool.vn. Okay? So watch what happens. Think about this, guys. Think about this. Let's look at our state. Look at Redux. Our state is what? Oh, my bad. I hard coded this return. Fuck. Well, just know that this is always going to send this back, okay? But the fact of the matter is I don't actually want to just hard code this, okay? I want to get this data, whatever comes inside, whatever goes here on line 22, I want to get this from where? From this authentication form, this email right here, right? So we're gonna pass it in right here, pass e.target.value. So if you guys look now, if you guys look at the action, watch this. Let's just look at what happens right here. Let's look at this thing right here. This object that's passed in is what? It's got a type, it's got a payload. Okay, it's got a type, it's got a payload. So a second ago, you guys heard me say that the pattern you will always see is a switch statement, and that's what I meant. You guys will always see a switch statement inside the reducer. So what are we looking at? First, we need to look at what type of action it is. So we can have an infinite number of actions. We can sign the user in, sign the user out. We can change the user's email. We can do all types of stuff. We can filter our movies differently. It's a ridiculously long list. Okay, it's impossibly long. So the one that we're looking for now is called update email. So we're gonna look at our action.type, and we're gonna say, hey, if the actions.type is update email, what are we gonna do? Are we just gonna change it to like hello world? Hi? Does that make sense? Watch what happened with my state right here. Let's just think about the state. If I do it, if I hard code just a return with one key, watch what happens to the state. Does that make sense, everyone? Who's confused? What's confusing here, Sean? Say again?
You hard code the...
Yeah, I hard coded this. I just want you to know that this reducer is going to fire every single time we dispatch an action. That's the key takeaway. When this magical dispatch function fires, our reducer fires again. Okay? So the main takeaway here is that you will never ever hard code a return value here, okay? What you will do though, is you'll look at your previous state and you'll grab out all the shit that you don't want to change. What's the shit I don't want to change whenever I change the, when I do update email? What's all the shit I don't want to change? Class maybe, school maybe, I don't want to change that. I want that shit all to stay the same. So we're just gonna spread out all the stuff right here. So you guys will notice now if I start typing, if I just do a spread right here, the state can never ever change. Okay, it'll never ever change. But remember what is inside of action. What is inside of action? The payload. So what is the one thing that we do want to change? Email. We want to change this email. And the value we want to change it to is hidden inside of the action, inside of a key called payload. So watch this. So let's just pay attention to the state of our Redux state right here. Remember, this is our Redux state. So notice what happens to email, okay? We're gonna have an email key pop up. Is that working? Obviously, I can call this whatever I want, right? We can say one is for email. We can say one is something cool, something not cool. So we save it, we look at our state, we start typing, and we updated 3 pieces of state at the same time. Yes?
What do we need to use state for if we do it directly from payload? Set email.
I'm gonna show you in just a second, okay? I'm gonna show you in just a second. So right now, I showed you one field because I was trying to keep it as simple as I fucking could. As simple as I could, that's the truth, okay? So now, we're just gonna delete this right now, and I'm gonna show you how this is gonna become more complicated, okay? So imagine you have an email, and then you have a first name, last name, age, address. So we're gonna say first name, last name, age, address. Okay, so now we're gonna say, do we want to pass all this shit through our, this is the problem that you guys are gonna run into, okay? I'm letting you know right now. This is why I personally do not like Redux. I don't care. My entire application right now does not need to know about the first name of the form or the last name or the age. All they care about is the current user, okay? So watch what I'm about to do. So we're just going to have on change, and we're gonna change what? We're gonna say, what was it again? First name, set first name, last name, set last name, age, set age. Okay, one more address. Okay, address, set address. Okay, so instead of dispatching all these actions right here, we're gonna do something very much different, okay? We're just gonna go, we can call this set email. And what's the value going to be? It's gonna be e.target.value. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this and go to replace this. I'm sorry guys, I know it's a bit confusing right now. So one is gonna be set email, the other one's gonna be set first name, the other one's gonna be set last name, this is gonna be set age, okay? And then this one's gonna be set address. Set address. Okay, so now how is this interesting, okay? Well, I don't want to pass all of this data through our Redux, okay? This is not that important. Only the form should care about this right now, okay? And in a second, we're gonna take all this data and we're gonna collect it, and then we're gonna pass it to Redux. Okay, watch. So we're gonna do an on click. We're gonna pass in an argument on sign in. Okay, we're gonna call it on sign in. We don't have a function called that yet, so we're gonna define it. Const on sign in is this function. And then what's gonna happen in here? We're gonna say current user. Current user is what? So we just take all these values and we're gonna stick it in there, okay? Watch what happens. So console.log, current user. Okay, so now I'm gonna start typing in my email. I type in my name, my age, my address, and then something here, okay? When I click sign in, what are we gonna see happen, guys? We're gonna see a console log over here. So we just created a brand new object. Guess what I'm about to do with this object?
Send it to the payload.
We're gonna send it to Redux through the payload, exactly. So watch, now we're gonna do pops.dispatch. What? Type is sign in user, okay? Payload is what? Current user, okay? I'm gonna delete this. Okay, we're now going to jump back to our reducer and do what? We're going to refactor. Okay, now what is the type of action that we need to account for? Sign in user. Okay, we're gonna grab all the previous state, and then we're gonna say, hey, our old current user, we're gonna set it equal to the action.payload. Okay, so I save it, watch what happens. Let's just think about what happens to our Redux store right here. Okay, right now, current user is null. I type in dat loy boy. Oh shit, my bad. Dat loy boy, loy tran 18 2405 Nugget Lane, Tallahassee, Florida 32303. Okay, I click sign in. Look at this current user. Okay, so what was the original objective, guys? The original objective. You guys already know how to make a nav bar. No, we need something much more specific than that. What are we trying to do?
Make a dynamic nav bar.
Yes, we need to have all this shit show up in the nav bar. So we're gonna now move further along. Okay, so we're going to refactor some more because that's our job. We're gonna create a new component. We're gonna call this one nav bar. Okay, we're gonna copy over our nav bar that we already have. Okay. And then we're gonna import this stuff. Okay. Now we're gonna export default navbar. We need to delete this shit that we don't need. Okay, guys. So now in our navbar, I want to see the current user's name. Who can help me? I've done this like a couple times now. I want to see the current user's name. How can we do this? Yes, that's exactly what we need. But we kind of got ahead of ourselves. We need to import connect, import connect. So basically just understand this, okay? Just understand it this way. We enter some shit here, okay? We enter some shit. I kind of did too many fields, guys, I'm sorry. I was trying to be explicit here. And I want you guys to show you guys how much more complicated this can get. I updated the state of the application. Think about it. The user is now signed in. Yet we don't see any change reflect in our nav bar. But we can see that this data arrived in our Redux store. It successfully got found in our Redux store. So how can we extract this data from Redux and apply it to our nav bar? What Fung just said. We need to map state to props. Okay? So before we do that, we need to import connect from Redux. Okay? Now we need to call connect. And then we're gonna pass it as the second function call, navbar. And inside of connect, we need to do one more thing. We need to pass it something. Map state to props. Okay? What is this? It's undefined. So we need to define a function that's going to do this. That's the function. And whatever this returns is going to show up as properties in our navbar. Watch. I'm gonna console.log navbar props. And we'll look at props. And then we'll look at props on line 4. We'll grab that. And hold on, let me just change this back just to be explicit. Okay, so we look at our, okay, let me go ahead and give it the authentication form, my bad. We're done here. Okay, let's look at this navbar. Why doesn't the navbar have props? I used the wrong one, There we go. So our navbar has exactly 0 props right now. Remember, when we connect it, what are we gonna get? What are we gonna get here, guys? We're gonna get a dispatch prop. What? Where the fuck? Oh, right, it's over here. I always forget. So look, if we do not use the connect, we will not get a property called dispatch. Okay, I'm gonna comment out line 22. I'm just going to only use connect on line 23. We get this bad boy called dispatch. Magical little function. But that is not good enough. Remember, we want to get the email from the user. So we're going to pass this first function call to connect a function as its argument, a first class citizen. For those of you who want to know certain things, want to learn, okay, or whatever. this function has to return an object. It has to return an object. The keys and the values of this object will map to the properties that are sent into this component on the right of the connect, which in this case is navbar. So I'm going to say our property, we'll call it weather is rainy. City is Ho Chi Minh City. So I jump over here. What props do we see in our navbar props, guys? Exactly, it's the one that we just passed in. But know that when map state to props is fired, it's going to be fired with this state object as the first argument. And what's going to be inside of state, guys? It's going to be everything inside of here. It's going to be everything inside of what we keep looking at right here. All this shit right here. Okay? That's what state is going to be. So let's look at our console log, and we can see that state is what? It is in fact that. It is in fact class, current user, school. So in just a moment, I'm not going to be interested in current user. What are we going to be interested in? Email. Okay, we'll start with email. So we're just going to stick this inside of email. Email is what? State.current user.email. This is going to work, guys? Is this going to work? Exactly. That's exactly what it's going to complain about. Cannot find email undefined. God damn, Kung, you ain't paying attention. Holy fuck. So we can just switch this by going to email right here. This is one way. There's a bunch of ways to solve this problem, to be honest with you. So we're just going to hard code in this default thing. It gives us an idea. This initial state. I want you guys to think about this right now as that part inside of our components where we did something like state equals, and then we initialize some basic state. Okay, that's what's going on. You guys remember how we did something like this in some of our components? We just had some default state. That's what this initial state does on line 13 through 15. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to delete this. And we solved the problem where we cannot read email of undefined, okay? So we passed in the email. Right now it is nothing. But watch what happens as we start typing in our email. Oh, my bad. I changed it, my bad. It's when we submit, okay? Yeah. So now what happens? Inside our navbar pops, what email did we get? Right? The thing, whatever we typed in here, right? So we can just do, like there's so many ways to cheat in coding, to be honest with you. I'm not really sure it's the best way. You guys could just take all of it. Take every single thing in state. That works too. Okay? I'm just take all of them, all the keys. So watch this. I'm gonna type, I'm giving my email, .loyboy, and Loy, and then Tran, and then 32, and then 2405 Nugget Lane, Tallahassee, Florida, 32303. Okay, watch what happens when we click sign on. Remember, we had a console log here on line 5 in our navbar. Okay, I click sign in. How much data does our navbar have access to now? Everything. It has everything inside of our state. Okay, I'm just cheating right now. I want you guys to know what's available. Okay, so now that's not very useful. Now let's just actually use it. Okay, so we say props.current-user.email. And I suspect that this will work now. So we do .loyboy, Loy, Tran, 18, something. We sign in. And what do we get up here? So that's not that interesting.
So why would you not want to return the whole state with the spider? Why is that cheating? Why wouldn't you do that every time?
Some people will complain and say that like now your components are, because like some components will render again, even though that data inside that component will not have rendered or will not have updated. So for example, right now, right, what is the only thing my navbar cares about? Exactly. So if I update my email down, if I update my last name, the state, because state changes on line 16, everything changes. Every single component that is written this way will render again. It'll be a performance issue. So you should only take out the keys that you want. So I'm only wanting right now state.current-user.email. Say again. So I only want state.current-user.email, current-user.profile picture. I don't know what it's called, to be honest with you. Profile pic URL. Okay. This is what I want. Okay. So watch. Where's our puppies? I think, okay, so now we're going to use this. We're just simply going to use it, okay? We're going to say height is 100, width is 100. The source is what? Pops dot, what? What do we call it?
Profile pic URL.
Exactly. Okay, so I suspect that this will work. Okay. I did something wrong.
Your initials be.
Yeah. Profile. Pick URL is an empty string. What? Email undefined. Current user. Pops.current user. Oh, my bad. So we called it what? Email. We just called it email. So we call it email. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so watch, guys. I got my puppy's picture. I'm gonna put in the name. Say dat Loy boy, Loy Tran, 18, Nugget Lane. Profile photo. I click sign in, and it does in fact update. Does anyone have any questions? I've been talking for 41 minutes. Holy fuck. Yes, I recorded it. Does anyone have any questions? I don't know how else to explain this simpler. If you guys think this is complicated, I invite you guys to read the Redux documentation and tell me that like that documentation is better than what I just did. I invite you. I want to see what you guys say. Okay, so you guys keep working. I want you guys all to